10 seconds left. Okay. Hello. Good evening. Welcome to Salve TV with me here, Monica Kunsekwe-Kuta, your host. Today we are talking about putting your house in order. And I have quite a few people here on the panel. We are waiting for someone to come from Nyaradzo, who's also going to share about how people need um, to put their house or affairs in order when it comes to sorting out your final arrangements. I'm going to ask Andrea to introduce herself and to tell us what she does.
Sure. Hello, everyone. First of all, I just want to thank you guys for having me on this show this evening. So my name is Andrea Cox, and I do live here in Calgary, Alberta, and I'm a licensed funeral pre-planning consultant. And what I actually do is I actually sit down with people on a regular day to put in place their final arrangements. And yes, this is funeral pre-planning, so that when that does happen, it'll be less stressful on your family. So what we do is we work with various funeral homes in Alberta and in BC. So, with pre-planning, you lock in your prices, and it's just so much easier and less stress on your family when something happens. So that's pretty much what I do. And obviously we are dealing with a mind change, because some people will say that talking about death is, they don't want to talk about it. It's taboo. They want to ignore it. But it's one of those things that's going to happen to one out of one of us, right? So this is what I do by educating people, by doing webinars, and we do talk shows just to be able to educate people on this topic.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll go over to Spiwe.
Hello, everybody. My name is Spiwe Mafumo. I am on this platform quite often, almost always, really. And I just support the work that Monica is doing. I'm an advocate for a lot of things. I wear different hats every weekend. So today we're talking about a topic which is very important to all of us. We know how we've had situations where people die and they are here for months on end, and we haven't repatriated their bodies to Zimbabwe. We need to talk about it. It's a tough topic, but it's a very important topic.
Thank you. I'll go over to Nkoma Kenny.
Right. Well, thanks for having me, and I just want to greet everyone. My name is Kenny. I'm a pastor. I'm a settlement counselor. I am an immigration consultant. I do a lot. I do music. I do poetry. And other things. And I think just based on my interactions over the past many years, one of the key issues that have concerned me with especially our community is just how unprepared we can be when the time comes. And so I'm much more of a listener tonight than a speaker. And thank you very much for thinking these things up and bringing up topics like this one.
Fantastic. Somehow I know that Nkoma, you always find something to say. So I'm not looking forward to your quietness, but definitely I'll hear you say something.
We shall see.
And Nomsa Maromo.
Thank you for having me. Good evening to listeners all out there. My name is Nomsa Maromo, born and bred in Zimbabwe. And I'm glad to be here. I wear, like Spiwe, I wear so many hats. I also support Monica with what she's doing, which is a good job. She's touching our lives in different ways. She talks about everything and I always find whatever she discusses with people, it's always empowering me. And I hope everyone back home there is really getting empowered like myself. But I'm an advocate for financial literacy. I just want people to know how their money works, we are talking of when someone passes away. That means there will be a gap for
Right.
someone's income. They have
Right.
gone. Was there a strategy in place to replace that income before they even go? So now this topic is very important because when we hear, it's hard, especially our background where we come from, me included, it's hard to talk about preparing for death.
Yeah.
So Andrea, you are here to sit with us and show us how to plan, and that's huge. But is it an easy conversation? No, it's not. It's emotionally scary, but you know what? The truth of the matter is we are going to die.
Right. Right.
One time we'll die, so we have to prepare for it. There's no such thing as I don't know. Vanosara ndula nozviona. It's like we have to make it easy for the people we leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys for arranging this.
Thank you. It's never easy for those who are left behind. And I think it's important that we make the journey lighter for ourselves and for others. So I heard you, Andrea, talking about the pre-arrangement. So do you sit with someone when they're still okay and there's no problem and they plan everything, including buying the coffin? Or can you walk us through what exactly you do?
For sure. So our consultations are either done over the phone, they are done through Zoom, so online, or we could go to the funeral home. So what we do is we go through what people's options are, understand what do they want. For those who want to be repatriated, we'll go through that information. If you want to be buried, if you want to be cremated, the list kind of goes on. And then I kind of explain to them what their options are. And then from there, they could either choose to pay or start a payment plan. They could start small or they could do everything. There's just so many options out there. So what ends up happening is that when something happens, first of all, when someone passes away, the family right away gets the question what funeral home to contact, because obviously the hospital has to release the body to somewhere, right? So that's where it starts. And there's a lot of confusion as to what do I do next, right? So now we're all in reactive mode. So what we do is, we kind of put that in place so the conversations is already had with the family. They know what is what. And this is way before something even happens. And I always tell people, like, when I tell people what I do, they're just like, that's just so morbid. But I talk to you before anything happens, right? And when everyone is fine. And it's a much easier conversation. We laugh, we put things together, and it's just so much easier.
Interesting. Sipiwe, I know you mentioned that sometimes it takes months and months for the body to be taken home when people are trying to look for money through various methods. Can you talk about the discomfort that comes with that?
You know, we have seen this situation time and time again. People having to post GoFundMe because we need to raise some money to get somebody's body taken back to Zimbabwe. And look, we have to be honest. It's a very uncomfortable situation when that happens and there's nothing in place whatsoever. And we know when we move over here as people in the diaspora, it's not like back home where people can just relatives can just come together and put pieces together. It's not like that. It's very uncomfortable for majority of people. We have to be honest and talk about it and refrain from such situations where you pass on and you have no insurance, nothing put aside, and just think whatever happens. And sometimes we're talking of a situation where somebody has been sick for quite a while, and we know what happens when you are sick. You got cancer, you got what? Sometimes it's a sudden death, yes, but really one way or the other, we have to move away from that kind of thing. That when I die, I don't know what they're gonna do. It's very undignified when they leave my body in the morgue there for 2, 3, 4 months, and people trying to piece together things to get money to go home. It's uncomfortable on people when they send you an email, or because we are a community, right? So and so is passed on. You probably don't even know the person. All you know is he's from Zimbabwe, and you have no choice but to you're pushed to pay something to get this body to go. And sometimes it's not enough. And then they come back to you again 2 months later. We didn't have enough money. Please, let's get money together to send somebody. Look, there are quite a few people who have been sent home that way. But I think we have learned, we should learn that this is undignified, both for the late person and for us individuals. We really have to get serious about things like this, and plan, and put something in order. And there's some people who don't have. We're not talking only of funeral insurance, but just insurance in general. There is absolutely no money to, where you can get money anyway to get things started. This is very important that we talk about it, because it's something that we all go through.
Mkoma Ken, what are your experiences?
Experiences. I used to say that, I arrived in North America in 1998. And back then, it wasn't very important, it wasn't very common that you'd actually know people from Zimbabwe. You usually just, the only person you knew in that area, maybe someone would be maybe 100 miles away. But then I met quite a few Zimbabweans, but death was just a very rare thing. Then we came to Canada and experienced a lot of death, but it was people we did not, people who were related to people we knew. So you heard about people dying here and there. Sometimes someone would die in Toronto, and it would be so shocking that this was local. And at that point, I remember saying that all this is going to end at some point, because we are getting older, people are getting older, our families are growing, and death is very real. And there's a person who was called upon to speak every time someone passed away. You had to kind of think about these things and address these things, because as a preacher, you run out of, you kind of run out of things to say too. And people don't think that's possible. And it was only a matter of time before people actually started to die in our communities, and it started, ringing so true, and that is shocking. But what we've learned, there were times when we heard so and so died in England, and they've been in the funeral home forever, a year, and you wonder how that is happening. But it does happen. So, but you would think that from the time I arrived in Canada in 2005 up until now, you wouldn't be hearing about GoFundMe as a funeral policy. You wouldn't be hearing about all these things. Of course, as a people, we have our ways. We give chema and all the time, and so there's no question about giving towards as a sign of condolence. But we cannot have. We cannot have donations as a funeral policy. We really need to rise above that. Zimbabweans are people who are very smart. We we have the highest education in Africa, and we're considerably placed in the whole of the world. So we are smart. If you hire a Zimbabwean, you know that the work is going to be done, and it's going to be done excellently. But there are certain things that we seem to be lagging behind, and I think part of that is because of just fear. Death has been so mystified. We don't want to talk about it. We don't talk about having a will. We don't want to talk about planning our funerals. We think it's inviting it. And every time I post on Facebook, I stop to think, wait a minute. If I die tomorrow, people are going to come back to this post and say, "Hey, he was actually saying it." People will say that, but so what? We have to face our realities and do something about it.
We can't hear you.
Okay. Darlington is back. Welcome to South TV. Darlington, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Monica. Darlington is the name, like you've said. I'm the sales manager in Nyaradzo, Zimbabwe.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and the services that you have for people in diaspora?
Thank you, Monica. Basically, as Nyaradzo, we have seen it fit. We pretty much know that we've got lots of brothers and sisters that are scattered around the diaspora. We came up with a product which enables repatriation services to be provided for, should it happen within the diaspora. But not only do we do the repatriation of Zimbabweans in the diaspora, we also inbuilt within the same package that we call Sawira International Plan is the ability for the members in the diaspora to also have a funeral cover for their loved ones back home. In a nutshell, this is the product that we came up with in 2018 July. And to date, we have also seen a marked improvement in terms of the uptake and also getting to have most of Zimbabweans in the diaspora enrolling to the product.
Thank you. I'll come back to Mrs. Maromo. Can you tell us your experience and what the financial literacy and all that is all about?
Oh, thank you. I won't touch everything else, but I'll just talk in connection with our topic today. And then I'll build on what my sister Spiwa said. It might not be a funeral policy, but you need to have something that will actually know that money is coming. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say family needs money to bury you and then to continue. But now we are talking of to bury you is the most crucial in those steps. So you need to be prepared. Like what my brother Kenny was saying, it's I don't know how to say it, but he came to Canada in 2005. We came in 2004. Back then, the social media was not as very active as it is now. Technology was not that advanced, but we just saw there was I can say an area where the technology and social media have improved vastly, and now we can see everything that is happening in England, in USA, wherever Zimbabweans are, because we are following our Zimbabwean community, but it's happening to other communities, right? So we have started to see people posting that someone died and we need money, we need help. It's very emotional when someone comes to you begging for money to bury someone. It's not the same as, you don't treat it the same way as someone wanting to begging for money for to buy clothes. Yeah, it's not the same. So now, that being said, many times when we are talking in financial literacy, let's say I'm talking about debt, I'm educating people about debt, security. I don't use emotion. I use logic. Mm-hmm. What is the logical thing to do? Because you want to buy this, your dream car, and you think you afford it because you are getting a loan. But do you really afford it? And why is your car the most expensive part of your expenses, like your debt? Why is it the most expensive? Why can't you buy a car that is $50 cheaper and put the other, instead of paying $650 per month, and pay the other $50 to your insurance policy, to your funeral policy, whatever? Because I'm talking about logic now. What is the logical thing to do? Right. Versus the emotional part that I read, this is my dream car, I like it. Mm-hmm. But what about other things? So why is it that when we talk about our finances, we are too emotional about what we want when we leave now, and then most of it we are borrowing for it. And why are we not being emotional about what will happen when I'm no longer there? And when you look at it, the ratios, what you need right now is, and what to prepare for what, when you're no longer there, you don't need a lot of money. You just have to put your mind to it,
Yeah.
and start. You don't need $500 a month for insurance, whatever it is. No. In many instances, and especially if you start when you're younger, it's way cheaper than you ever think, because why? You are younger, you are not susceptible, you are not sick, you are healthy. So it becomes so cheap, so affordable. I don't want to say cheap because it's not a cheap thing we are talking about. It becomes so affordable. So when we talk about these things, let's not put emotion in it. Let's take all the emotional connection. Let's put logic in it. You need to think logically, like, who is supposed to be taking care of me? Do you want the community to take care of your mom when she passes away? I always tell my children, if you do GoFundMe for me, I'm going to be Ndomka Chipoko.
She's basically saying she.
You know why? You know why? Because some families actually ask for GoFundMe when the money is there. Yeah, so it's not every family that is. I'm sorry to say, that's not what everyone is doing, but some families ask for that money just because.
Yes.
Because if you don't have a funeral policy, let's say you don't have a funeral policy, but you have a life policy, a life insurance, it may take time for that money to come, like maybe 2 weeks or so a month, but it's coming. So you can go to the bank and borrow some money. Some in the family can go and borrow, or do something that you need to do while you're waiting for the big money to come. And normally the insurance companies, when your policy is approved, everything is in order, they give you up to 20,000 in 2 days to do some proceedings before the lump sum comes. So there's no excuse. So let's not talk about emotion. Let's not put the moment we put emotions here, then I'm forced to pay more than Chema. Chema is $20, what I can afford.
I think those are valuable points that you have raised, and also to go to what Sipiwe mentioned, that we need to go with dignity. Because if you never asked for a penny whilst you were still alive, what does it say about you people borrowing money to give you your final send off, like borrowing money? But I think we also use polite words, but I think it's actually very offensive that somebody would ask for $35,000 to send your relative back home. I've never met her. I don't know them. They are in another part of the country. If you say we have 15,000, we are 5,000 short, it's understandable than to really put it out there to say this GoFundMe is to repatriate so and so, and we're looking for 25,000. Go ahead, Sipiwe.
You know what I find? I mean, don't judge me now. I'm just saying it as it is. That's just like Piwe. What's embarrassing really is, as I said earlier on, is just people sending out. We're making it a habit. If someone dies from in our community, it's floated around. So and so's aunt died in Ottawa. I don't know her. And really, I'm not even ashamed not to send anything because I don't know the person. There's need for dignity. And as Nomsa said, also this issue of insurances of any sort, other than the funeral policies, insurances are very important because even if you don't have a policy, any funeral policy, at least you have something to fall back on. You have some insurance to talk about. And also, second point is people, I think, gradually, I think if Darlington can tell us that in Zimbabwe, more and more people are opting for to be cremated, right? That's an option. You can't want to us to send the whole body there, and it's gonna cost 17,000 instead of cremation. Because the moment you talk about cremation, that, oh, why don't you think of cremation? Maybe that's an option. People don't want to hear that. How can you talk like that? Our culture is, or even to be buried here. If going home is too expensive and you have not put anything in order, you should look at options that are available. But if not, honestly, it's really putting people in a very difficult situation where they are forced to do something when they shouldn't. And when you start going back to please go fund me second time around, people, we have to go in dignity. We have to have some level of decency. It's not right, it's wrong.
Okay. I'm mindful of the fact that Nkoma Kenny will be gone in a few minutes. So I'll go to Nkoma Kenny and then go to Andrea after.
I just had a question for Nkoma Darlington regarding what's Sawira International Plan. So what I hear is, I don't know if this is true, but what I hear is that if you're trying to purchase a plan for a relative or like a parent, your last name has to be the same. Is that true? And if it's true, what's being done to accommodate people who don't have similar, I understand that there are, issues like fraud and stuff like that, but there are so many ways of proving that a person is actually related to you a certain way.
Thank you, Kenny. I wouldn't say it's true to say that you should have the same names. Basically, what we require is only that you need to just tell us how are you related to the person that you're taking a policy for. Basically, with insurance, what we require is what we call insurable interest. We really want to know that the person that we're putting on your product is indeed related to you, to also avoid the issues to do with your moral hazards, wherein one might want to profiteer out of insurance. But it's not necessarily that the names have to be true.
Okay. So if my sister has a policy on my mom, can I have a different one over? Like, I'm just asking because people ask these questions. It's a touchy subject. When you start asking Zimbabwe, you start asking if you know a policy, people think you're trying to kill them. So if you touch on that.
Okay. What happens? You can simply apply online, maybe to say I want to cover my mom on this particular product. But what we then do as Nyaradzo really is to then say, okay, you're trying to cover your mom, but they are already covered on this particular product. What we try and avoid to actually have what we call double insurance, where all the siblings are covering their parent on one policy. I think it won't be fair on both parties, either Nyaradzo and yourself, to have one product. One person covered by several products. Because when it happens, really, we need to simply maybe pay you a sum assured. In most cases, it might not be really commensurate with the kind of services that you require. So we actually advise you to say that you're trying to take out this particular policy for this relative, but they're already covered on someone else's policy. Then I think it's no longer, we're trying to actually demystify this to really say that the mom is covered on the particular product, the sister also wants to cover. It's something that people should actually discuss. It mustn't be shrouded in secrecy as it were. Yeah.
Thank you.
So do people try to take a policy without the person they're insuring them knowing what they're doing? This question is to Nkoma Darlington.
Okay. Sometimes maybe just out of love. It normally happens to children. They take policy for their parents or in-laws, and they might not want to inquire whether they're already covered, or they might actually not know that they're already covered by someone else. So whenever one then applies for the policy, upon processing those policies, we would then pick it up that they're already covered. But basically, some would actually talk to them to say that I want to take a policy for you, and then they require the details. Because if one is taking out a policy, we require the full names, date of birth, ID numbers. So eventually, the person that you would want to insure would pretty much know that you're doing something. I think it's also good to actually discuss it frankly and openly. so that you can actually decide and choose the packages that you would want to take for them.
Thank you. Go to Andrea. Can you give us a breakdown of, like, say, for example, the costs and stuff?
Well, first off, I just want to make it clear that when it comes to repatriation, first of all, there's two different options. There's an option, say, for instance, I live in Calgary and I want to, like, when I pass away, I want to go to the Caribbean, right? And then there's the repatriation where you're on vacation and you need to come back home. So when it comes to repatriation, we also need to keep in mind that it depends on the funeral home that you use. So whether, there's different prices, and that's the biggest thing that I want to express is that when it comes to funeral costs, it depends on the funeral home. This is why pre-planning is really good, because you don't know how much different funeral homes cost. When it comes to funeral homes, first of all, it depends on what that family wants. The price will be different if you're going to have a service where that person lived first, as opposed to sending them back home. Growing up, Dad always says that when he dies, he wants to go back home. So my parents are from the Caribbean. And obviously now that we're older, we understand what that means. So say, for instance, now that's now changed. He's okay with now staying here. But if he wanted to come here, have a service here and there, repatriation, there's two different funeral costs. There's going to be the funeral home cost of where you live and where you're going to. Then you have the flight. So flight is going to depend on the dimensions, on the distance, and on the weight, right? There's consulate fees. There's some countries that, depending on where you are, say that you travel somewhere, they actually charge a lump sum. The government charges a lump sum to just fly you out, right? So there's so many different costs, like when it comes to repatriation. If I sit down with somebody and they know that they want to go back home, the first question is going to be, are you going to have a service here or just the one service, right? Keeping in mind that repatriation, now we're thinking about if there's 3 children here, there's flights to go there also, right? And this is why the cost keeps on adding up. So when you're hearing we're trying to come up with 35,000, the family's also thinking about those who need to fly to that location for that funeral also. But once again, I just want to make it clear that it depends on the funeral home. It's just like buying a car. So this is why researching and understanding the funeral home to use and what the cost is better to do beforehand and have something in place so when it happens, that coverage is there.
Fantastic. And Nkoma Darlington, can you walk us through on how it's done, and maybe to tell us, maybe Kuti, how many people have you repatriated from either the US and Canada? I think if we have the figures, it will help people really understand that this thing is actually happening. Those services are there, because some of the people are hearing it for the first time.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Maybe I would touch on what is offered maybe by the Saudi International Plan that I've briefly introduced. We cover the member or the policyholder that is anywhere within the world, be it Canada, USA, UK, they're actually covered. The package we have made it that we have the policyholder, the spouse, and the children that are below the age of 23 are certainly covered free of charge. We don't have any extra charges for the children that are below the age of 23. But should one also require to have additional dependents, whether in their countries of residence, that is your UK, USA, Canada, they can also be covered on that particular product outside of the core family, because the principal member, which is the policyholder, spouse, and children, we call it the core family. Then you can have an option to add additional dependents. Any relative that might be in a host country or country of residence can also be covered. Then lastly, you can also have dependents right here in Zimbabwe covered on the product. Now, we have got 4 package or plan types that are available, and we call them the gold plan, your diamond, platinum, as well as the premier plan. What they offer really, they start right from all the pertinent services, be it the removal to the funeral home of your choice within the country of residence. Is covered under the policy. We'd also then provide the repatriation services. We actually link with the relevant ministries, be it Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Health, and all the relevant government departments. We do the paperwork on behalf of the client to ensure that we do the smooth repatriation back home. Then we provide the transportation of the deceased. We also, over and above transportation of the deceased, there's an option to have additional 2 air tickets that can be also gotten under the policy. This is an optional benefit. The member really has to choose whether they want this one. Then we can then fly them back home. Then from this end, upon arrival, we've got also optional benefits. That is the accommodation. We pretty much understand that some members, some Zimbabweans in the diaspora might not be having homes here, or they're being rented out. So we provide the accommodation. There's an apartment, 2-bedroom apartment that we then provide for at least 6 nights. Then over and above that apartment, we would also provide the transportation, that is the vehicle to run around and do whatever you want to do. Again, for those 7 days, you'll be having that vehicle. Then all the pertinent services are done locally here. That is taking our deceased to their final resting place. That is anywhere within Zimbabwe. There are no restriction in terms of distance we'll travel back home. So essentially, this is how we then the product really works. Then you have also asked me to comment on the number of repatriations that we did. I can confirm that we have done 3 so far. That is in January. 1 was from USA, then 2 from Canada. And we've already done those repatriation services. I've just commented on January alone, but we've been doing it since 2018 July. Until we have got the capacity to do it. We've got also partners dotted around the world to enable us to do the smooth repatriations back home. So essentially, this is how the product operates. So the key things maybe to take note is that you'd actually choose how you'd want covered. The plan types that I've spoken about your gold, diamond, and premier plan. What really differentiates these plan types is to do with the amount of groceries that are then paid. You also pay out a cash amount to assist the families with a bit of cash, whether they can buy groceries or any other requirements on the funerals. Then the casket type that will then provide gold being the entry level and premier being the topmost. So essentially, this is how the package works. I can also maybe comment on the issues to do with how much does it really cost. I think it's a key component that I need to also talk about. If you're looking at the premiums that are payable, it ranges from $27 monthly. And the $27, like I said, is covering the family. The family, I've defined it as the policyholder, the spouse, and the children that are below the age of 23. Which we don't limit the number of children that are covered on one particular policy. There can be 2, there can be 3. That's still covered. Should it happen, then we'll provide the services. So it's from $27 up to $44. Then that is for the core product. These are the prices. But then when it comes to the additional benefits I've spoken about, you're looking at maybe your vehicle to use while it's here in Zimbabwe. We're looking at about $5 per monthly. Then your accommodation is about $1.44. Then your 2 return air tickets, you can have them as either economy or the business class. You really have to choose. For the standard one, is actually going for $20.92 per month. So essentially, the client has got an opportunity to actually customize or tailor-make the kind of services they require at the end of the day.
Wow. I had no idea that there is so much detail. Yes, yes, hand of applause.
For sure.
I had no idea that there are services like that, which are quite comprehensive and they cover everything, including accommodation. I was just thinking after 6 days, you'd be saying, give us back our car. But hey, you would have done your job of taking care of the person and to make sure that they can run around and all their needs are met whilst they are in Zimbabwe. And it also takes away the stress, because the person will be traumatized, and to having to think about how to travel, how to do this and that, you're taking care of all that as well. So Spiwe, have you got anything to add?
I just was going to ask, because you said it starts from $27. Of course, it keeps going up depending on what other additional things you want. Um, the age of the person who is being insured. If I am 27 or 29 and I come in, I suppose it depends with how old you are, or if you're 71 and you want to sign up for this, how does that work out?
Yeah, thank you, Spiwe. I've actually missed that one. Thank you for reminding me. For the principal member or the policyholder, the age limit is 70. If you're 70 and below, you can actually apply for the product. But maybe the beauty of the product now, when it comes to the additional dependents, there's no age limit. One can be 80, 90, or even 100. We still cover them. For the additional dependents, we don't restrict the age. We only focus on the age of the principal member. Then perhaps also commenting on the issues that I've also had the earlier presenters talking about premiums maybe being cheaper for those that are young ones. What we have tried to do is to standardize the premiums. There are no, the 2785 I've spoken about caters across whether you're 70 or you're 50, you still pay the same premium.
Good. That's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted to know. That, I start now and I'm already like over the air, and then they'll tell you need to pay $100.
I have a question too to Darlington.
Yes, go ahead, my Maromo.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Darlington. This is amazing, and I had no idea. But I know last year Nyarado helped a family with their bereavement. I was in the inner circle of that family. So I know they were saying there are some things that were not covered by Nyarado, and you can correct me, or they were saying, because I saw them kind of talking about money on the side. So I said, but you said you have the policy and it's going to help it. They said some of the things are not covered here in Canada. For example, their service at the funeral home. And so can you elaborate on that? I don't know exactly, because they didn't really tell me the details of something that was not covered in Canada here that was making them have to come up with some money to finance that.
Thank you, Nomsa. Like I've said, we pretty much cover, I think, all the basics. Perhaps I'm not too sure about, I'm not privy to the case in question, but otherwise we cover all the payments that are required by the funeral home who would have contracted in Canada. We pay for everything else, including even the coffin or the casket, because the client has to actually choose the coffin or the casket that they require. What we simply do is to give them the limits, to say that you can choose any casket up to this particular level. But for any additional payments that are required, I'm not too sure, maybe those are extras that I haven't spoken about. But we try to cover end to end, right from Canada until we come to Zimbabwe, without necessarily having to pay anything else. Because all the bills that are incurred by the funeral home in Canada are settled by Nyarado.
Thank you very much. What I'll do is I'll get your contact on the side, and then we can actually talk, so that we can actually help each other on how to best help Zimbabweans.
Fantastic. I'm happy with that.
Thank you.
I have a question here. Do you cover just Zimbabwe, or you cover the rest of Africa?
Okay. Thank you, Monica. For now, we're focusing on Zimbabweans. We're doing repatriations into Zimbabweans. But if it was actually expatriations from Zimbabwe to another country, that one we can do. We haven't. But if your repatriations maybe in South Africa, because we already have presence in South Africa, we have presence in Malawi, we also have presence in Namibia. In those countries, we can also do the repatriations. And the southern part of Africa, yes, we can do.
Can do. So can you also do someone who is maybe Zimbabwean, but they want to go and get married maybe in Tanzania, buried in Tanzania, where they are married?
Yes, we've done that before. Yes, we can.
Okay.
I was going to ask something.
Interesting. Go ahead, and then we'll go to Andrea.
Yes. About cremation, how does that work out if I am a policy holder and I choose to be cremated here? Is it the same amount of money I pay?
Okay. Thank you, Spear. In terms of the premiums that are payable on monthly basis, yes, it will be the same amount of money that will pay. But what will then happen is that for every policy that we take out, there's a sum assured, there's some insured that is attached to the policy. So in some instances, one might actually choose to say that I no longer want to be repatriated, maybe due to change of circumstances. I now want to be buried in Canada. Then what we then do is we actually pay, it's either we pay the service provider in Canada or we actually disperse the cash sum insured so that you can utilize the monies in Canada. Yeah, for example, you might have actually chosen all the benefits I've spoken about. I've spoken about your air tickets, I've spoken about accommodation, vehicles, each and every item that I've spoken about, there's in some insured that is attached to that particular benefit. In cases where we haven't utilized that particular benefit, we then pay out the sum assured attached to it, so that you can also utilize it on some other aspects of the funeral or anything else.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Andrea, have you got anything to add?
Well, I'm excited to speak with Darlington another time because definitely that is a great service. I really wish that they could do something like that for the Caribbean. And just would like to, yeah, there's nothing I'd like to add. That is awesome. And that's the biggest thing is that, when someone passes away, the biggest thing with all of our services is just to bring peace of mind to that family during that devastating time. And you guys have done that. So I applaud you guys. That is awesome. And as I said, I'll just love to have a conversation with you later on to more understand how I can even be of service helping you with those who are here in Canada.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So we're going to spend this time having some action plan. So each person is going to just give maybe 3 points of action plan of what people need to do to get this ball started. Starting with Maima Romo.
The action plan that I can say is we were talking about we ended up getting details of what of what the coverages are, which coverages are, which is very good. I really applaud Brother Darlington. He was prepared and he laid it out well. But the bottom line is, like I said, it's not about the emotional part, it's the logic.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be prepared. There are several people who can help you with this cause. If you want to be buried back home to Zimbabwe, if you want to stay in Canada, if you want to sit and plan, if you want to, but what I didn't really manage to tell you was I also know a company that does the same like Andrea, but they don't, they plan, they help you with the planning for the funeral. If you say I want this song, if you say I want them to do, and I'm quite sure I think that's what Andrea does as well. But there are other benefits as well that you can get from there. That's why I said I want to talk to Darlington so that we will make something really good for Zimbabweans, and then they'll be able to have something like a good all-in-one for all the services in Canada. But insurance is the king. Insurance is key because it will take all the load away, and we are doing it. It's not for you.
Right.
There are some insurances where you cannot even enjoy the money. It's for the people who stay behind, and there are some where you can enjoy the money while you're still living. But at the end of the day, you are preparing for the future in case you can't do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we in our community, let's forget about that I won't be there. Yes, you'll be there in spirit. You can see people struggling, crying, begging. You will be there. So, and then do it for your loved ones. It's not for you, it's for your loved ones. So that's all I can say. And it's about making them cry because they are no longer there, but they are happy they were related to you because you made it so possible for them to continue while you were no longer there. That's the moral of the story. That's the logic I'm talking about here.
Yeah, so everybody had the moral of the story is that you need to allow people to continue loving you even after you're gone. I'll go back to Supiwe.
Action plan. Let's die in dignity, and let's go in dignity, please. And really, as Nomsa said, let's have insurance policies, funeral policies, some policy of some sort, because let's refrain from this GoFundMe. As you know, it's really, honestly, we're helping each other, but it's so undignified when your body has to lie in in the morgue for 3, 4, 5 months because they can't. There's no money. There isn't any money. We cannot live like that. At least have some policy, have some money somewhere where somebody said, it's something else when he said, we're short of $2,000. Chongoita can little bit Kanzatu, so that we can top it up. That's totally understandable. And it doesn't matter who anybody from Zimbabwe are, I can always keep Chema Yangu Lukandoka $20. But when people keep coming back to you, we need $50, we need another $70. It's very undignified. Let's just look at it that way, and let's refrain from this kind of thing. And for those people who feel they don't have a job or they're not making enough money or whatever, opt for cremation. Resure, because it's dignified. You're cremated. They can keep your ashes can be taken home by somebody, and you'll be buried next to your loved ones. But we can't have people staying in the morgue for months and months. Is it you, Darlington, I was talking to earlier on, where it took a year to repatriate somebody from England to Zimbabwe. Let's be dignified.
I think it also makes the whole process for everyone so exhausting, traumatic, and stressful. Some cultures they keep their bodies, the remains of their relatives for months. But Zimbabweans, we don't do that. And so if the person, as long as the person is not buried, no one can sleep, no one can rest, because that process hasn't been done. So it's important that that part is sorted out.
That's where the dignity comes in.
Absolutely. So before I go to you, Andrea, there's a question here that I don't want to forget. Someone is asking Mkoma Darlington that have you done a feasibility study to assess whether or not you can repatriate a COVID-related remains?
You can.
Okay. Yes, it's possible to repatriate the COVID. It really depends with the protocols that are being given at any time. But we have done some COVID-related repatriations. As long as we do it according to the set protocols, yes, the bodies can be repatriated back home.
Okay. Thank you. Back to you, Andrea. What action plans can you recommend?
Well, first, I think we just have to accept that death, there's no exception. It doesn't discriminate. There's no discrimination with age, who we are. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's when. So once we can accept that it's going to happen, then it's to start to have the conversations with those around us. Let your loved ones know what your final wishes are. Have these conversations. If you have a package with Darlington, if you have a package with Nomsa, whoever it is, just let your family know. Communication is so huge. And I don't want to exclude us having our wills and our enduring power of attorneys, personal directives in place also. These are legal documents that we all need to have, because even when it comes to a will, there's certain things that can't happen if it's not documented, right? So overall, just know that, putting our affairs in order is an act of love. It's a way of bringing peace to your family during a devastating time. Let's just accept that it's going to happen and put an action in place. For some of us, tomorrow is literally too late. Let's start now.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we go over to Nkoma Darlington. Your action plan, please.
I think mine is very simple. Today's plan would make tomorrow's peace of mind. Let's start planning today. Maybe it's never too late. Let's make it today, and it will happen the way we would want it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And we're going to share the links. We're going to share links for Andrea in the conversation, in the comments, as well as links for the Nyaradzo funeral policy that is just so amazing. Someone wants to ask a question. We still have about 4 minutes. Can you go ahead and ask? Okay, so I'll give him your link in Nkoma Darlington so that he can ask. He seems to have clarification that he needs, but he hasn't put the question here. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and also thanks to Nkoma Darlington. We know we woke you up. It's early in the morning in Zimbabwe, so we really appreciate you. For getting up so early to spend time with us, to educate us, and to share these important points and facts about what we need to do in order to go with dignity. So insurance policy simplifies things for not just for yourself, but for everybody else. Thank you so much, Andrea, for taking time to come to this platform. It's not the last time that we're calling you guys to come here, because this is just a part of the discussion. This is one part of the discussion, because when somebody goes, a lot of things happen. Families fall out. There are wills that need to be done. And so we want to hear from people who actually work with relatives who are now going through realizing that there was no will, or maybe, I'm sure, Nkoma Darlington, you've got some experiences of just realizing that, boy, we didn't know this person. This person in the coffin here is totally different from the person that we thought he was or she was, because something else will be coming up. But putting jokes aside, we just really appreciate you all for taking time to come and talk to us about this important matter. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.